So on the rugged coast of Baja California Sur, there's this bay with a pretty chilling name, Ensenada de Muertos, the Bay of the Dead. But here's the thing. Today, it's one of the most ridiculously vibrant, life-filled marine ecosystems on the entire planet. So what's the deal? How does a place teeming with this much life get a name that dark?
And that's really the big question we're going to dig into. The answer, it turns out, isn't just one thing. It's more like peeling back layers of history. We're talking ancient bones, spectacularly failed empires, and even modern-day ghosts. And it all leads to this incredible story of rebirth. All right, to get to that very first layer, we have to go way, way back. Thousands of years, actually. Long before any Europeans had even a clue this place existed.
See, this land belonged to the Parakou people. And these guys were something else. Totally isolated out here on the peninsula, their culture was unlike any on the mainland. You gotta picture them as absolute masters of this tough coastline, fierce sailors and incredible divers. Okay, and this is where that name might have its oldest roots. The ancestors of the Parakou, a group we call the Las Palmas culture, had this fascinating practice called secondary burials. So, get this. They'd let a body decompose, then they'd gather the bones, paint them with this really bright red ochre pigment, and then bundle them up in caves and right in the sand dunes along the coast. They literally turned the shoreline into a massive open-air cemetery. And life here was not peaceful. 52.5%. That number is the percentage of skeletons from the Las Palmas people that show signs of serious trauma. We're talking one of the highest rates of interpersonal violence ever found in the entire New World. So the main takeaway here? Long before anyone else showed up, this was already a place defined by intense conflict and the ritual burial of the dead. So let's fast forward a bit. Now we're adding the next layer to the story, the arrival of the Spanish. And let me tell you, their dreams of gold and glory just completely smashed against the reality of this bay. You have to understand, the Spanish weren't just exploring. They were chasing a full-blown fantasy. It sounds crazy, but a popular novel at the time convinced them that California was this mythical island ruled by Amazon women, where gold was literally everywhere. What Hernán Cortés and his men actually found, though, well, it was a little different. Instead of riches, they got a bone-dry desert and local warriors who were, let's just say, not happy to see them. And it was just one disaster after another. I mean, look at this. First contact in 1533 ends in a massacre. Then Cortés himself shows up in 1535 to start a colony. It completely collapsed from starvation in less than a year. The final attempt in 1539 found absolutely nothing of value, and they ended up naming a nearby spot Cape Disappointment. Pretty much says it all, right? Every single attempt just added more death and more failure to the bay's reputation. This quote really just nails the whole Spanish experience here. The dream was completely shattered. They showed up looking for gold, but all they found was hardship and death. And in the process, they cemented another layer onto the identity of the Bay of the Dead. For them, this place wasn't a land of opportunity. It was a graveyard for their ambitions. Now, you'd think the story of failure would end right there. But nope. Fast forward about 450 years, and you've got a whole new generation of dreamers, all lining up to have their own ambitions crushed by this exact same desert. So in our time, what do developers do? They try to literally rebrand the past. They took Ensenada de Muertos and decided to call it Bahía de los Sueños, the Bay of Dreams. It's the classic marketing versus reality showdown. And spoiler alert, the Bay of Dreams is still mostly just a fantasy on paper, while the tough, wild spirit of the Bay of the Dead is what's actually real. And the proof is right there in the landscape, littered with these modern ghosts. You've got a half-built resort with sketchy power and water. You've got other projects that just stalled out and are now literally being swallowed by the sand. Then there's the haunting story of the Death Ship from 1902, a boat quarantined for the plague whose passengers were supposedly just left here to die. So you see the pattern, right? From 16th century conquistadors to 21st century developers, this bay has this long, unbroken history of killing the grand plans of outsiders. Okay, but this is where the entire story just flips on its head. After centuries of death and disappointment and failure, the bay goes through this, almost miraculous rebirth. The legendary Jacques Cousteau sails into the Sea of Cortés, and he gives it a brand new name. He calls it the world's aquarium. And honestly, nowhere is that more true than right here in the Bay of the Dead, which is now a global hotspot for some of the biggest, most amazing animals in the ocean.
I mean, just look at the orcas. The local pod here is absolutely thriving. It's grown to about 22 individuals, and they've already spotted 3 new calves this year. That is a sign of a super healthy, happy family. In fact, the ecosystem is so well managed that they have to put strict limits on how many boats can even be out there. This isn't just survival. This is an explosion of life.
And it's so much more than just orcas. The bay is absolutely packed. You have humpback whales, even giant blue whales coming here to have their babies. Thousands of mobula rays leaping out of the water, sea lions, whale sharks, hammerheads. It's a completely different world now. So the question is, how on earth did this happen?
Well, the answer isn't some big government program, and it's not another foreign billionaire with a master plan. The real heroes of this story, the people who finally broke that cycle of failure, are the local families who never left, the ones who knew the secrets of the bay all along.
For generations, you have these families, the Luceros, the Giraldos, the Greens, and they didn't just live here. Their lives were woven into the sea itself. They were masters of the classic fishing panga, and they had this almost supernatural feel for the currents, the seasons, the animals. It was knowledge in their bones. And here's the absolute genius of how they succeeded where all those big money projects failed. It was so simple. They didn't build a new resort. They just used what they already had. That deep generational knowledge of the sea? Turns out that makes you the best whale guide on the planet. Those fishing boats they'd used for decades, they adapted them for tours. And what they built was this real, homegrown business founded on their own heritage and pride. And that incredible legacy is still going strong. Now you have a new generation, leaders like Myra Lucero, who are stepping up. They're professionalizing the whole operation, pushing for official government protections, and blending that ancient family wisdom with modern conservation science. They've gone from being fishermen to being guardians. And this right here, this is the real secret. Why are the orcas and whales here so uniquely social, so comfortable around people? It all comes down to trust. Because for decades, the families of Agua Amarga have treated these animals with incredible respect. There's no chasing, no harassing. They've built this bond, and the animals know it. They're even teaching their own calves that the boats from this one village are not a threat. So that leaves us with this final thought, Ensenada de Muertos, the Bay of the Dead. It's a name that was earned layer by layer through conflict, failure, and tragedy. But today, the local community has completely rewritten that story, transforming a graveyard of ambition into a vibrant sanctuary. It's just an amazing reminder that while big, flashy dreams might get crushed by a harsh reality, it's that deep, quiet, generational knowledge that can bring life back to the most unexpected places.